Give us the latest, Jim, as you know it, on his health.
So, back when he had it, and then a month into that, I had a chance to run into Scott Boras this summer. He obviously felt very optimistic about the surgery. But more recently, I had a chance to talk to both him and one of his assistants to get a sense of how far along Matt was, because there hasn't been a lot of information on where he stands. His exact quote was, he's doing great in throwing the ball well. Now, it's not throwing off the mound. He's not doing any of that type of stuff, but it is to the point where, in terms of a throwing program, he's on schedule, feels 100%. I think that's the most important thing, is he's on schedule and ready to go, and will be ready to go, at least from their standpoint, when we get closer to spring training. So I think that's all positive news so far on the Harvey front.
One thing we do know is that he really struggled for the first time in his career last year. Take the Tommy John out of it, but from a pure performance standpoint last year, before the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery, he struggled. What about bouncing back from that? How do you anticipate that's going to play out?
Yeah, the physical nature of it, now that you can pinpoint exactly what was going on, and when I talked to Matt, I talked to him just recently, he was talking about numbness in his fingers and losing feel. Losing feel as a pitcher is a very scary thing, because you're not losing velocity. He was still 95, 96, but that feel where he had numbness in his fingertips, couldn't finish his pitches, he couldn't repeat those pitches, especially the slider down and away and the curveball, couldn't feel that change up and get the good release point on it. That's the biggest concern when you're a power pitcher, when you don't have that feel and that command. That's where he struggled. But mentally he was beat up last year. Every time he thought he had turned the corner, he seemed to have an even worse game and fall 2 steps behind where he was at that point. So I look for him really mentally getting over the hump, and it's not going to take just spring training of coming out there and firing on all cylinders, because he should be ahead of the game. He's well rested. If he's 100% healthy, I think he's going to need at least a good month of starts, maybe even 2 months before he feels like he's right back.
I feel good about it because there are a list of guys, and it's a very short list of who've had thoracic outlet syndrome and had the surgery. So it's hard to really go, the Tommy John's list is much, much bigger. Here are a couple of starters, and there's only a couple others that we didn't add, like currently Phil Hughes, Tyson Ross, including Harvey. So the guys that have come back from this, I went with the youngest on the far left, which is Jaime Garcia at age 28. I think that's the most relevant to Matt. Now, he only got 20 starts there, but he wasn't ready at the beginning of the season. You look at his ERA, innings pitched, ERA in the mid-2s. He had a really good season the following year after having surgery. Josh Beckett was a little bit older at 33, still had a real solid year, 20 starts. Chris Young ended up having that comeback player of the year award, at age 34. Obviously, Met fans are familiar with him. Carpenter never pitched after he had it, but he was 37. So, but those are the main guys. Mike Adams was a relief pitcher. He came back from it a little bit, but there's not a lot of guys out there that you can pinpoint and say, well, I feel really good, or there's some big concern. I just think that you try to take those 3 or 4 guys, find the guy that's closest in age, and say, well, Garcia in age-wise, I think maybe, hopefully, is what you get out of Harvey.
As you say, it's not like Tommy John surgery, whereas the long track record that you can point to and say, okay, had this surgery, this is how guys did. So what about the fact that Harvey's under team control for 2 more years, 2017 and 2018? If he has this really good bounce-back year, and again, he's a Boras client, right, would the Mets consider trading him at that point?
That's the tricky part about it, because I think if you look at this overall, that's exactly what you hope and expect. You don't know for sure how he's going to pitch. But if he gives you the type of year, let's say he gives you, they're careful with him, they give you 25, 28 starts, and he gives you, a high 2, low 3 ERA, which I don't think is out of the question. Now there's a lot of options for you as a front office. You could trade him at the end of the year if you wanted to. You could hold on to him and hope that you're in things for 2018. You could try to extend him if you want. But I think the motivating factor here for Matt is he wants to get himself back on track this year. So I think coming into this season, you have a motivated guy. He's healthy. You're expecting to have a big year. And then as a front office, it gives you plenty of options at the end of the year.